What's up guys? Now if you're a subscriber to my channel, you've probably noticed over the past couple of months I haven't been reviewing many TV shows. Now the reason for that is for scheduling and stuff. I have still been watching TV shows, I have been keeping up with them, I just don't always have the time to record the reviews, especially if I'm also doing film. So here I am, just going to talk about 2 or 3 TV shows that I've been watching. This isn't an expansive list of the shows that I've watched, there are a lot of them. So I'm just going to narrow it down on some of the ones I want to talk about. Dracula. So this is the BBC production of Dracula, 3 episodes from the makers of Sherlock, each one feature length 90 minutes long. So what did I think of it? Well, it was okay. So here's the thing, each episode has a very distinct, different quality to it. So in that, the first one I think was good, the second one I think was okay, the third one I think was terrible. So yeah, we'll get to that one. But I think it does a good job of setting things up being a slightly weird and quirky and alternate take on the original novel. The fact that the first 2 episodes are essentially like the first half of the original Bram Stoker novel is interesting. New depictions of Van Helsing in there. I think the relationship between Van Helsing and Dracula in this, the fact that they are like going back and forth with the quips and the one-liners and stuff, I think is really quite good. The quirky, unique individual characters. I like Klaus Bang as Dracula. I think he's really quite good. He's got a sense of humour to him and a twisted sense of humour as well, let's say. But he looks like a classic depiction of Dracula. I think the actual sets and locations are pretty good. You can tell at times where they are trying to limit the budget though, with it being BBC. The fact that most of the first episode is in dark castle corridors. The fact that the second episode is mostly in like ship interiors and stuff like that. It's very simplistic but well done stuff. But you can see that they're trying to limit the scope and budget a bit. Not going to talk about where the third episode is. They do a good job of setting things up, establishing who this version of Dracula is and what this version of Dracula is all about. Then the second episode comes along, there's a much more of like a murder mystery kind of thing going on, but we all know who's responsible for it. So it's interesting how they still make it fun and entertaining despite the fact we know the answer. So that works really well. They've got this cast of like characters with familiar names and faces there who are really good at like just expanding this world. Then the third episode comes along. And boy did they just drop things at this point. This is probably the worst third episode of like a 3 episode series ever. They've really dropped the ball. So it's hard to talk about this episode without going into spoilers. So basically they do something which they should never have done. They transport Dracula from one place to another, let's say. And the place which they end up being in just isn't that interesting. It doesn't strike me as that believable. They are doing jokes and references to things and it's just not smart, it's not funny. And then it looks like this is only going to be a single standalone season, which I'm fine with. But it doesn't even do a good job of wrapping things up. It feels really cheesy and badly done at times. So yeah, really disappointing. And because of this final episode, I would say avoid this show altogether. Which is really disappointing because the first one was actually good. The second one was alright. It felt like it was going in a good direction. And then they just threw a curveball at us that was like so bizarre and odd. Again, hard to talk about without going into spoilers. The Good Place Season 4. This is the final season of The Good Place. So that's why I'm bringing it up. This is a show that could have gone on for several more years, really, because it was very popular, very well liked. People were sitting down and watching it, very funny at times, great characters, but yet they chose to end it here. Does it work? Yes, it worked really, really well. So I'm going to avoid spoilers, but basically what this show has been really good at has been constantly just throwing in curveballs and twists and turns and surprises that actually makes sense at times, and that every time they introduce a new element, it fits in with what's already been established. It doesn't feel too outlandish or bizarre. And the characters are so lovable, so likable, that you really do relate to each and every one of them. So it's good that when the final comes, each and every one of them gets like their own segment and story, which really does give them the send-off and the goodbye that they all deserve. So, not going to say too much more about it, but this is probably one of the best season finales in a long time. Every single character gets what they deserve, every single character gets their moment. It's very emotional, still very funny as well. Yeah, a great series finale, a great final season. Altered Carbon Season 2. So the long-awaited Altered Carbon Season 2. This time, Joel Kinnaman is gone and he is replaced by Anthony Mackie. So Anthony Mackie comes in as a new version of Takeshi Kovacs. And let's get the problems of this season out of the way first. In fact, no, let's get the good things of this season out of the way first. The cast is good. I like Anthony Mackie in the lead role. He doesn't really get too much to do, but he spends a lot of the season being kind of angry and aggressive, which is fine. But you've also bringing back Chris Connor as Poe, who was brilliant. He was one of the standouts of the first season, which I think is why they brought him back, because he's not actually in the books. In the books, it's a Jimi Hendrix hologram, I believe. But what this show does here is basically it's got a challenge of establishing essentially a new lead character, a new world, new location, new science fiction elements where people don't die because they got these devices in the back of their neck which store their memories and everything so they can just be put into an... It's a fascinating idea. What the first season done so well was establish this like Blade Runner cyberpunk world. There was like this big fancy city, lots of depth and atmosphere. It felt like it was a living, breathing place. This season though transports us to a different world, and it's a mining colony. And it's not that good to look at. It's a little bland, in fact. There's not a lot going on here. There's basically a corporation that's running things, and people don't like that corporation. And yeah, the world is just a bit boring, to be honest. It feels like this season has had a major budget cut from the first season. It's less expansive, less interesting. And what this season does do well is the action scenes. There are some really cool, exciting action scenes in there. I think as a action TV show, it works. As a science fiction TV show, it works as well because it's got a lot of science fiction elements in there, exploring like life after death and trying to bring people back, the right and wrong, the ethics of it. But I don't think it goes into too much detail about it that it did in the first season. The first season felt like it had a point to make. This season, not so much. I think like this season has been streamlined a bit. The story is much more focused this time around, whereas the first one there were some side stuff going on, and the first season I felt like had a bit more to say. Overall, Altered Carbon Season 2 is disappointing, to say the least. And I don't know if it's going to get a Season 3. I know there's an animated movie coming out just next week as of recording. So yeah, I'm really disappointed by Altered Carbon Season 2. I thought it started off well, and then it gradually just got worse and worse as it went on. It became a bit more fantastical as it went on as well. I'm not going to dive into spoilers, but it gives certain characters certain abilities and powers, and certain events happen which just feel a little too far-fetched, even for the science fiction established world that they've got here. And this wasn't something I was going to bring up, I'm going to bring it up anyway. One of the key elements of Season 1 was the sex and nudity. Now, of course, a lot of it unnecessary, but it was a key element of the show. It gave the show much needed character, let's say. This feels like a completely different show from the cast who's in it. There's only 1 or 2 characters from the first season who are in this season. The locations, all the locations except for one are completely different. The story is different, although it does continue from the first one, certain threads from the first one. So, but it also looks different, it feels different. They've really toned things down a bit. There's less sex and nudity. In fact, I think there's only 1 nude scene in the whole season. Again, not complaining, just pointing it out. This season feels and looks, behaves as if it's a completely different show. This is not the Altered Carbon that I've started. It's some sort of weird spin-off, it seems. So it's really disappointing. And you know what? I said 2 or 3 shows. I've got a bunch of others. I'm going to talk about them in another video. So thanks for watching so far. If you've liked this video, subscribe to my channel to get more content like this. And of course, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_GrahamBurton. Let me know what you thought of all these shows. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you liked Carbon more. Maybe you liked Dracula more. Maybe you hated The Good Place Season 4, although I doubt you did. And until next time, thanks for watching.